want to reflect on what we've seen and indeed heard today in Brussels and the United Kingdom is the leader of UKIP, Nigel Farage. So you told the members of the European Parliament that you had the last laugh, they're not laughing now, and that they'd never done a decent day's work in their life. These are the people that have to sign off on any kind of deal that the British government manages to cobble together with them. And that was ridiculous what you did, wasn't it?
Well, let's get a sense of perspective, shall we? I stood up to speak. I was, before I'd uttered a word, shouted down twice in my speech. The President of the Parliament had to halt proceedings and say, please listen to him.
But this is about the national interest. Why are you shouting, why are you dealing with people like that who need to sign off on a deal that is essential for our nation?
As I say, let's get a sense of perspectives. They were rude, abusive, shouted me down, and I teased them back a little bit.
So you were rude back to them.
No,
but unfortunately, we need those people to sign off on a deal.
I wasn't rude, I teased them. But I was trying to make a very serious point, and here it is. We are now going into a renegotiation. The argument I put to them was, let's be grown up and sensible about it. Let's recognise that in terms of trade, if there was a tariff barrier war between us, it would hurt them more than us.
What is grown up about telling people they've never done a decent day's work in their life when you need those people politically later down the road?
Well, when you try and make an argument in reasonable terms, as I've just done to you, and all they do is barrack and scream abuse, perhaps sometimes you come back with a little retort. But I do repeat the point. There are hundreds of thousands of German car workers' jobs utterly reliant on selling product into the United Kingdom. So let's have this conversation.
But were you acting in the national interest when you stood up and said those things? Because
I've been told.
The feeling in the chamber was very much against
I've been told I've been acting against the national interest for the last 20 years by even daring to suggest we should not be members of the European Union. We've had a referendum, we've voted to leave, it's now about having sensible terms of divorce.
Okay, let's talk about something that's happening, something alarming that's happening in the UK. The instances of racial abuse, of people who think that the Brexit vote somehow gives them the license to be abusive to other Europeans, to people outside the European Union, mentioning the P word again after God knows how many years. Will you condemn that?
Utterly, as I always have done. I mean, look, UKIP has always been a party that respects the rule of law and that is completely against extremism or discrimination, of course. And you know something? I will say this to you, that the abuse since that Brexit result is going both ways, because there are people who voted to leave who are being called horrible things. We're in a country of heightened tensions.
But some people think that they have been given a license to indulge in racial abuse because of the vote.
I think those people behaved like that before and would have behaved like that regardless of what the result is. And I condemn appalling behaviour on both sides of any argument.
But the instances of that abuse have gone up dramatically, according to the police.
Well, perhaps they have, perhaps they haven't. I don't know.
So what will you say to those people? To those people watching you right now, what will you say to them?
Behave yourselves. We are living in the 21st century. We're living in a global world. We're living in a country that has, for 60 years, had people from the Commonwealth and elsewhere come to settle within it. And we will go on being a country that is open and welcoming. The difference is, having voted for Brexit, we can now control the numbers.
Jean-Claude Juncker said you should quit the European Parliament, hand back your expenses. Are you going to do that?
Well, do you know what? We've won the war in winning this referendum. We now have to win the peace. And the whole negotiation that will take place here and be debated and voted on in the European Parliament is something that I, as leader of the biggest British group in the European Parliament, have to take part in.
There are reports tonight, quite credible reports, that there might be a deal, if Boris Johnson becomes Prime Minister, that his Foreign Secretary will be George Osborne. Michael Gove at number 11. Do you feel that you're being cut out of a deal that you helped to create?
Well, I don't care about me being personally cut out of a deal. Let me tell you what I do care about. 17.5 million people, the largest number who've ever voted for anything in the United Kingdom, voted to get our country back and get our borders back. And what matters to me is that the government holds faith with those voters.
But you're not even sitting at the table.
Well, I'm not part of the government, but that doesn't matter. What matters is they do what people want and they don't backslide when it comes to the free movement of people.